Hello everyone, and welcome back to Samurai Cinema. Today, I'll be wrapping up the Hideo Gosha Samurai Wolf Saga with the second and final part. Making a return as the charismatic Ronin Kiba the Furious Wolf is Isao Natsuyagi and his co-star, the legendary Ko Nishimura, as the cynical Ronin Magobe. It's a dark tale of compassion, empathy, and which perspective will bring you good fortune, and which one will land you at the wrong end of a sword. We're looking at the sequel to Samurai Wolf called Samurai Wolf 2 Hellcut. I'm your host, GojiraFerret, and let's begin. Less than a year after Samurai Wolf, writer and director Hideo Gosha was in full swing of creating the sequel to Kiba's saga. Gosha would co-write with Norifumi Suzuki, Kyoko Ono, and Kai Tasaka to create a more involved and dramatic narrative than its predecessor. Natsuyagi would reprise his role as the Furious Wolf opposite of Ko Nishimura, who would be Kiba's oppugnant counterpart. Sadaji Yoshida's skills would be in charge of cinematography, with Kentaro Yuasa joining the crew as choreographer. The sound department would be headed by Masayoshi Mizoguchi, and Toshiaki Shushima's composition tying everything together with music. Hellcut would be printed in black and white on a 35mm format using the process Toei-scope, not to be confused with Toho-scope. Production and distribution would be handled by Toei Company, and Hellcut would see its initial release in Japan on May 13, 1967, under the title Kiba Okaminosuke Jigoki Giri. Hellcut would receive average positive feedback, praising the film's more developed and darker narrative than the previous installment. Both films would be released together on DVD and Blu-ray in 2023 on May 16th. Once again, Samurai Wolf fans would be pleased by the premiere of the duo and solidify its already established cult fan base. Is this movie a good way to end Kiba's story? Let's find out. Our hero, Kiba, awakens to the sound of a woman being assaulted by a group of thugs from the Kazama Sword School. He intervenes and comes to the young woman's aid. The group of Kazama students attempt to dispatch Kiba, but discover that his skill set is far superior to theirs, causing them to hastily retreat with their pride broken. The young woman, in an attempt to show her gratitude, tries to force herself upon Kiba, but the kind-hearted Ronin rejects her, causing her to scream and flee from him. Confused by this odd encounter, Kiba chalks the interaction up to her being crazy. Back at the sword school, the group of assailants tell their master Ikaku, played by Ichiro Nakatani, about their encounter with the Furious Wolf. Ikaku is insulted that his sword style was outmatched by Kiba's and vows to duel the Ronin himself to assert that his Kazama sword style is superior. Meanwhile, Kiba comes across a prison convoy transporting prisoners to Arakawa's administrator. Kiba meets an imprisoned Ronin named Magobe Kawazu, who reminds him of his late father. We're then given a brief flashback to Kiba's childhood and how he was raised by his father. We're shown his father too was a Ronin who would challenge sword fighting dojos for money. Intrigued, the wolf follows the convoy that ends up meeting up with another prison convoy that has an imprisoned female thief and murderer, Oren the Thistle, played by Yuko Kuzunoki. The two convoys continue their trek, but are ambushed by bandits of the Higasa clan who are disguised as shogun officials. The bandits attempt to kill Magobe, but Kiba engages them in battle. We watch the sword fight from the eye of the imprisoned criminals as they watch helplessly in their cages. The Higasa clan retreats, and the remaining officers hire Kiba to help escort them to Arakawa Station. The Furious Wolf agrees, and the convoy proceeds to its destination. Magobe tells Kiba the reason he was targeted by the bandits was because the Higasa clan had found a vein of gold in a depleted mine. Magobe was hired by the clan to kill the shogun's guard before the vein was found out and taken by the government. The Higasa bandits had promised to save Magobe from imprisonment, not attempt to assassinate him. Back at the gold mine, the clan leader and patriarch Jinroku Higasa berates his sons and goons for failing their mission. While he insults them, it's revealed that the young woman who was assaulted at the beginning of the film is Jiroku's daughter. Jiroda, one of Jinroku's sons, is given the task to take a group to the administrator's home and dispatch Magobe. Night begins to fall. As rain pours down on the convoy, Kiba and Magobe have a conversation, and eventually the subject of the wolf's father is brought up. Through another flashback, we see that Kiba's father was slain by Koshu swordsmen who could not accept their defeat. Sadly, it is the wolf's final memory of his father. The moment is abruptly interrupted by Jirota's ambush, and Kiba, with the officers, defend their positions. The fight rages on, but eventually comes to an interesting close as Hikaku and one of his students join the fray. The two swordsmen successfully fight off the Higasa clan and issue a challenge to Kiba himself. The Furious Wolf agrees, but under one stipulation, that he is able to complete his contract with the officials to escort the prisoners to Arakawa. Later that evening, the convoy arrives to its destination, and Kiba is relieved of his duties. As our hero leaves, Magobe insults Kiba and his father, causing Kiba to reach through the bamboo cage and put Magobe in a headlock before insulting him back. Kiba takes his leave, and we see that the argument between the two Ronin was a ruse to allow Kiba to slip a pair of trimmers into Magobe's possession. Hikaku is seen waiting for the Furious Wolf's arrival as the two swordsmen prepare to duel. Both men cross swords, eventually ending with one of Hikaku's students, Gunbei, jumping in and being slain quickly by Kiba. The wolf postpones the fight and runs back towards the administrator's house. During the duel, Magobe and Oren both make their escape, but as they frantically attempt to break their containment, Higasa bandits lay siege to Arakawa Station. The two prisoners escape, and Kiba arrives only to come across the dead officials and empty bamboo cages. Higasa bandits spring a trap, and Kiba finds himself captured by the clan. During their escape, a weak and tired Oren is left behind by Magobe, who, in her desperation, curses the cynical Ronin for abandoning her. Angered, she joins forces with the passing Higasa clan in hopes to watch Magobe die. She follows close behind the bandits, noticing a beaten and bruised Kiba being dragged by his wrists behind the horses. The Furious Wolf is strung up on a tree and left to hang as food for the crows. Meanwhile, Jinroku's son and daughter, Oteru, are confronted by Magobe. The son is interrogated and gives away his father's location, only to meet his death at the end of Magobe's blade. Oren pledges her allegiance to the Higasa clan, but Magobe single-handedly ambushes the clan's stronghold and cuts Jinroku's numbers down before he retreats. Oren pursues Magobe, confessing her love to him, only to be captured and betrayed by Jinroku. We come back to the helpless Kiba, where Oteru arrives only to recognize him as the one who saved her. Oteru attempts to free Kiba from his gruesome fate, but Magobe arrives and cuts the wolf from his bindings. Kiba and Oteru hike through the hot wilderness and find themselves taking shelter in a shack. Using bamboo and fabric, Kiba splints his wounded arm as Oteru assists him. Akaku arrives and challenges Kiba to a final duel, and the wounded wolf accepts the challenge. The two once again cross their blades, but eventually the wounded Kiba is overpowered by his opponent. Before Akaku can finish off Kiba, Oteru shields him, taking the slash to her back. In retaliation, the Furious Wolf runs the Swordmaster through, killing him in a grand display of bloodshed. In desperation, Kiba takes Oteru back to the Higasa clan in an attempt to find her treatment for her wound, but Oren is strung up above a well by Jinroku, and Magobe attempts to cut down the rest of the Higasa clan. Jinroku holds Oren hostage and threatens to kill her if he continues his attack. Negotiations turn as Kiba, with the wounded Oteru, arrives. Now with both parties in possession of a bargaining chip, the two Ronin are able to close the distance and make an agreement. Magobe then continues his attack, and an all-out sword brawl ensues. The altercation is brutal, leaving Kiba even more wounded than before. The wolf is able to rescue Oren, but finds himself bound by her ropes in the process. Oteru, confused, finds herself caught between her father and Magobe during the fight, and under the eyes of a pleading Kiba, she is cut down mercilessly. Magobe overpowers the Higasa leader, and the entrance to the mine collapses on both him and his daughter. A distraught Kiba questions the cold actions of Magobe, only to be met with greed and apathy. As the cynical Ronin explains, compassion will only get a man killed. Enraged by the heartless nature of Magobe, he issues a challenge, and the two Ronin fight. Magobe bum rushes Kiba and gets the best of the wolf. Magobe unleashes a powerful slash, but the bamboo splint Kiba had made protects him, allowing the furious wolf to dispatch his opponent in the same way he did Sanai. Magobe falls, and Kiba mourns the death of Oteru and puts her hairpin through his bun. He crosses paths with the heartbroken Oren, who mourns Magobe, who also places her hairpin into his hair. The movie ends on a solemn note as Kiba, the furious wolf, staggers aimlessly from the mine. His destination, an ultimate fate, forever unknown. Yoshida once again uses his style that made the first Samurai Wolf film unique. Duels are at times shot with tilted angles, causing the nature of the fight to be more frantic in appearance. He also tilts the camera at the very beginning when Kiba awakens to Oteru being assaulted, this shot purposely mimicking Kiba watching while lying upside down in his bed. The fight between Kiba, the officers, and the Higasa bandits was also very unique, as it was shot from the perspective of the prisoners in their bamboo cages. Yoshida also breaks up some of the fight scenes with artistic usage of items in the foreground, which hides some actions, allowing us, the viewer, to make our own determination of what happened. The slow motion that was employed in the first film was not used this time during fight scenes. Instead, certain dramatic scenes are given the slow-mo effect. possibly to allow more time for the weight of the scene to set in. It's a shift in cinematography, but does not ruin anything established by the previous film. Hellcut is more narrative-driven, and a darker narrative at that. This allows more room for acting to be showcased. Kiba is still compelling as a character, despite him being less charismatic this time. In fact, the Furious Wolf is more humanized this go-around, as he is no longer the invincible swordsman and finds himself ensnared, ambushed, and wounded physically and emotionally. Magobe was possibly the best acting though, with Nishimura giving us a character whose outlook on life is cold and jaded. When he speaks, you feel that the individual has been through a lot and possibly done many horrible things to survive in such a cruel period of time. Usually, when the narrative becomes more important in an action film, the acting falls flat. In this case, the cast stepped up to the task and made this film more than some schlocky action film. Action is a bit different this time. As stated prior, slow motion isn't used for the scenes, and in the beginning the blood splatter is toned down quite a bit. As the movie progresses, the more important kills are given the fountains of blood treatment, making the kills more impactful. Fights are larger scale too, with multiple man ambushes being a staple of the fight scenes. Unlike most of these large scale fights, the camera and choreography is kept tight. Usually when there's so many men swinging swords on screen, the choreography isn't solid, the shots and continuity being deteriorated. Yoshida was able to work with Yuasa closely again to help make every sword swing count. I really like when these types of battles still respect and initiate tight choreography. With the narrative taking a more important role in the film, dialogue had to remain at the forefront. With the same modest runtime as the first film, there once again was little time for fluff. Characters are more aware of their surroundings, but at times still don't say anything when they should to avoid another situation. I'm not going to say it's a plot hole or a big deal breaker, nor does it feel like the writer's forcing the plot along. It's no better nor worse than what has been established previously. Tsushima is back, with more of the same amazing harmonica-powered gritty music. He does get to work more, though, on sadder scenes, and gets to experiment with less energetic notes. Usually employing the harmonica, he uses it to create more solemn tracks to accompany the darker and more bittersweet story. I did notice that there was less usage of the traditional Japanese instruments, with the absence of the koto. I do want to praise the sound department led by Mizoguchi. Sword clashes are more intense, and the impact is satisfying every time someone's blade crashes into another. Once again, audio is one of the most strongest points of Samurai Wolf. Samurai Wolf 2 Hellcut is a darker and more depressing narrative. Kiba is less charismatic as the film's tone progresses and beats him down. The story is a bigger driving point, and with its dark overtones, with the cynical outlook on the path of the Ronin, I'm given vibes from another work of Gosha's, Goyokin, where in the first film, Kiba is left unscathed and with his chin up. We see the Furious Wolf beaten, bloody, bruised, and heartbroken. Though our journey with the character wasn't long, we do have a sad end to our adventure with him. I was left wondering if maybe, after the events of the film, Kiba would become just as cold as Magobe was. Gosha probably intended the audience to be left with questions and concerns, leaving us with a thought-provoking open ending that subverts expectations. This is what I've become familiar with in Gosha films. This film is raw and gritty, and with the ending that fits the bill. I recommend it, and if you know how Gosha does things, it's a perfect ending to the Furious Wolf character's saga. Thank you for joining me on this journey, not only through Hellcut, but also through the entire Samurai Wolf saga. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like and comment your thoughts on the film down below. If you'd like to stay up to date on new content, give Samurai Cinema a subscribe. I'm your host, GojiraFerret, and thank you for watching.